Present the tale.
All right, yeah, I got the boy here.
Of the unwitting matchmaker. Three very brief acts. David and I met in January of 2003 in Sweden, and I'd gone there to go someplace totally different and interact with people and not go where all the American kids went, England or France where Rachel went. No, I wanted to go someplace different and meet crazy people. And I show up in this Swedish language class, and there's people from all over Europe, and we had a guy from Japan, and then there's this guy from Illinois. And there were 3 or 4 of us in that group that really bonded. But David and I became friends, and we went out the first night, and we grabbed a 6-pack of Carlsberg, which was this Danish beer, and we walked to this party that we knew was in a certain direction, but we weren't sure. It's freezing, like my mom said, it's cold and dark, and the beer actually froze. The beer actually froze during our conversation. But David and I were kind of getting to know each other. Are we gonna get along? This and that, and we had a great evening. At one point in the bar, we lost each other. Or David ditched me. I really couldn't decide. We were supposed to hang out the next night. My idea. David ditches me before we make plans. I spent the next night alone, no friends, no nobody. Anyway, David and I fast became friends. We found that we both liked NPR, and he was trying to get in the Peace Corps. I toyed with the idea of the Peace Corps, but I never had the guts to do it like he did. And we became great friends. We ran around Europe. We chased girls together. A couple times we unwittingly chased the same girl. We worked it out very quickly. Yeah, we worked it out. But we became great friends, and then he went to Africa for 2 years and came back, and I knew he was back. He had written me a couple letters from Africa. They were always on the top of my to-do list to write him back. It just didn't happen. But Rachel, I think, encouraged me to. And he came back, and it was kind of like one of those deals you separate. It was a long time ago. We were friends, and let's see if we still get along. So I invited him to go to this beer and chili festival with me in Colorado. I called him the night before. I said, I've got a flight for you. It's $180 straight into Colorado. Come meet me. Being the crazy guy he is, he came. That led to an invitation to the Austin City Limits Music Festival, because I wanted him to come and see these bands and meet my friends. And at the last minute, Rachel was invited. Or not invited. Rachel was able to come at the last minute. She's invited all along. Yeah, all right. More on the next step later. But David was my best friend that didn't know anything about my life. I could call him and tell him anything because I knew he didn't know anybody. He couldn't tell anybody anything I told him. To be totally honest. That's totally screwed. I lost my objective faraway friend. But David, thank you for being such a wonderful friend in a faraway land where we didn't know anybody. And I'll forever treasure our friendship. Second act. Me and Rach. Rachel's 2 years younger than I. And we grew up as the kids under Heather. So Mom and Heather call us the kids. And we have different dads. So Rachel and I would go over to Dad's house, and we'd come back together with Sis. And we were constantly fighting and arguing, but we were constantly drawn to each other. I don't know how that works, but I am convinced that no one in my life will ever say my name as many times as Rachel did. In the rest of my life, 50 years, no one could say Richard as many times as she did in protest. I mean, I would just get close to touching her, and it was, Richard, stop! And so loud? I'm right here. Who is she yelling to? Yeah, she was protesting to the masses. And I would beg her, if you keep yelling, stop. Dad's gonna get real mad and yell at us. She said, I don't care. I want you to stop. And so she would yell, stop, stop. And eventually Dad's voice would come from the office, and this was known as the voice. It's a low, edgy, terrifying thing. You'd think you'd gotten 10 lashings, but all it was the voice. And he would yell, shut up, brother! And we'd run to our rooms. And we'd sit there. And I told you this was going to happen. I should say, you shouldn't have done it. And we'd sit there and try to figure out how long before we could come back out. Well, we grew up from that and became teenagers, and I became the older brother. And the back and forth friend versus overprotective brother. Never had any good boyfriends. And I would try to thwart these things. And one of the famous times I did it was when her boyfriend would call. I didn't like this guy. And he was everything I wasn't. I didn't like him. He called and said, is Rachel there? And I said, yeah, just a second. Put the phone on the table and walked off and went about my business.
Now we call it.
Unfortunately, that never worked to get her to break up with these guys. But we had a great time in our teenage years, and through all our arguments and friendly times, we grew a great bond. And she came to college where I was, and was the dutiful sister. I remember she sent me a pottery project from high school when I pledged to fraternity, and it was this. I still got it. I keep pins in it. It's this pathetic little rock. She was a young student. She got much better. But it said, "I love you, Rach," on the bottom, and I'll always love that thing. We later moved in together and thought about our quirks. She told me, no more Bob Dylan. You're obsessed. Cut it out. She told me, nobody thinks like that. You are weird. You need to stop. She always hated yelling at me because I would take it so seriously and be quiet. And she'd come back to my door a few minutes later. Sorry. I called you weird. I'm weird too. It's okay, it's what I like about you. Sometimes I just get fed up. She was always very gracious and apologized. We never went to bed angry. What I couldn't stand with Rachel is she always dated older guys. I was 2 years older. She had that year in between us. She had her year and anybody younger. I would have been happy with it. They were always older than I was, which meant there was no fear, no respect, no intimidation. I think she liked that. And so these guys are always treating me like the well, she finally found David, a guy I can shoot straight with anytime. The thing that I love about Rachel is that she has always been my younger sister, and I've been trying to learn over the last few years. Mom mentioned she doesn't enjoy being the baby. It's hard to realize when someone who's been younger than you your whole life is no longer younger than you are. She is now an equal, and she has such admirable dreams. She's had so many dreams, and they change a lot, and you got to take them seriously. You suggest that they're going to change. You're wrong. A couple months later, when she tells you they're going to change, that's when they change. You got to roll with the punches, be enthusiastic about it. And Rachel has so many wonderful ideas and so many wonderful dreams and such service she can give the world. And I can't wait to see which of those dreams that you fulfill, because you're going to be wonderful at any one of them that you do. The third act, these were supposed to be brief, right? We go to ACL, Austin City Limits Festival. David comes in, knows nobody. Rachel comes in, she knows my friends. And they are sitting in the middle seats in this car, all 6-hour drive to Austin. And Rachel starts, are you behind him? Behind him. And she's kind of poking her head up. So, David. You know, they met years before, and she starts asking him questions, very enthusiastically. And they are hitting, I mean, they are rolling question to question. Conversation is just going, and I look in the rearview mirror, and I'm going, something's up. I don't know if I like it, if I do, you know, I might not. But they just hit it off, and they thought they were getting away with it. And by the middle of the weekend, Rachel comes up to me, and she had her wine with Jessica. Richie, I need to talk to you about something. They weren't going to ask me. I don't know if they discussed this, but they weren't going to ask me, but they were going to at least tell me. She said, and I said, I know what you're going to tell me. Just say it. Just come on out and say it. Well, I feel like David. Yeah. And all of a sudden, this weekend went from a bunch of buddies to a budding relationship and a bunch of other friends. And watching them, they became so serious about each other. And I told David that weekend, I said, hey man, I don't have a problem with this. It just can't be this, you know, a one weekend thing.
Well, my dad will kill you.
What did I get what I asked for? It was not a one weekend thing. But they became so close so quickly, and they fostered a relationship over the phone and through frequent visits as often as they could, and just fell in love, and they consider each other over anyone else. And that is, I don't mean that in a selfish way. I mean that they are constantly trying to make each other happy. And I've seen that for 2 straight years, and I think it's going to continue forever. I'm going to cut this short because I said I'd keep it under 2 minutes. And I just want to wish you guys continued love and happiness with your travels and the choices you make and the dreams you follow. Can't wait to spend the rest of our lives together.